Wesley invites Chief O'Brien to a party. Commander Flaherty speaks 40 languages. And Dr. Pulaski did not bake Kyle Riker a cake. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk, and today we're doing a review of Star Trek The Next Generation Season 2, Episode 14, The Icarus Factor, story by David Assail, teleplay by David Assail and Robert McCullough, directed by Robert Iskov. This was April 22nd, 1989, after a couple weeks off. We have a very special thanks to give to Susan Parker for sponsoring this episode. Thank you very much, Susan Parker. Miss Parker! Miss Parker! Somebody's got to know what that is.
I don't know. Somebody's got to guess. Decide
them. Everybody in the comments below, make your guesses. Miss Parker! See, Cirroc, you're like, wait a second. I think I almost got it. Make your guesses. At the end of this segment, I will reveal the answer. How you doing today, Cirroc?
I'm doing good. It's making me think, though. Is it like making me think of like Guess Who's Coming to Dinner or something? I don't know what movie that's from, but
Miss Parker just don't know.
Okay. All right. I'm doing good, though. I'm doing good. How about you?
Pretty good. This is an episode that we have referenced before with this Anbo-Jyutsu stuff, and Lower Decks, I think, did an Anbo-Jyutsu thing once, and everybody kind of laughs about this, and I don't know why they laugh about it. I can tell you why I laughed about it. The reason I laughed about it is as follows. Hang on. Everybody, please make sure that you are subscribed to this channel. You give this video a like, give us a 5-star rating if you're listening in, and a nice review. We really appreciate that. And we also really appreciate if you go to patreon.com/the7th-rule, or just search for the 7th Rule on Patreon and become a patron for as little as $1 a month. Thank you very much. The answer is because they called it, what he called it, like the height of the evolution of martial arts or something like that. That's what he called it. The ultimate evolution of martial arts.
Yeah. This I think this episode was there were a bunch of things that didn't align right for me, for the setting being in the future. There were certain things that popped out that seemed to date this episode thematically in a time period not being properly set in the future, in my opinion. And that's one of them. The Anbo-Jyutsu really looked remedial, and we talked about the American Gladiators.
Yeah, I was waiting. I was like, here comes the American Gladiator talk. Totally.
I mean, it was
there's like ice and storm there,
Yeah, 2 people on the pedestal. You got to knock the guy off the pedestal. You got 2 big giant Q-tips in your hand. It was the same concept, if I'm not mistaken. And
with like a laser thing too on one end. Zip, zip.
Yeah. Yeah, with the level of technology that exists with the holodecks and all of this and all of these things, you would. I just feel like that's a very simple thing. I mean, you can put on one of those goggle headset things right now and have a virtual experience that would be, in my opinion, more advanced than what they're presenting with this particular thing. So yeah, I wasn't impressed with it. It looks like 2 hockey players getting in a fight with their sticks, or something to that effect. It's not,
but keeping their gloves on.
Right. It's not that it's not that advanced to me. So I was a little underwhelmed by that part of it. And then what also, going deep into the story, the concept, they're not good at writing family on this show, in my opinion. It's all dysfunctional, and that's where Deep Space Nine has a better platform when it comes to
Well,
writing for family.
DS9 absolutely got it right. I mean, it's a whole
Yeah,
show about family in the truest sense. Yeah.
yeah, and this is not well done. In the I didn't feel a connection between him and his dad at all, which you would think there would have to be one if you are in the situation that he says he was in, which is, having a mom die young, which basically is almost like the Jake story to some degree,
Mm-hmm.
Riker story, growing up with his dad and mom dies young. But in in this particular case, it's like he doesn't have a dad like Sisko,
Yeah.
and
He's got an
and
asshole of a dad.
he's got a pretty asshole dad who
Yeah.
wants to kick his ass. Has
Yeah.
been cheating him his whole life. So it's like,
If I just, right when you said that, I pictured Kyle Riker and Benjamin Sisko sharing a beer. And Kyle Riker's like, yeah, so this is what I do with, to kind of raise my son. And Sisko be like, you what? No. And he's like, yeah,
yeah,
because how else is he going to learn? And Sisko be like, talk to him. Ask him
yeah,
how his day went. Mentor
yeah,
him. But then, but what about beating him up? Isn't that also kind of, no, you don't need to do that.
no, yeah, you don't need to do that, and that's what I'm saying about the next generation. So far, has done a poor job in really capturing the dynamics of the kinds of families that we're used to having in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of this stuff is dysfunctional families. And that's actually one of the sad things, if that is what we're looking forward to in the future, which is, oh, we have this great benevolent place and everybody's doing great around the universe and the galaxies, and we're doing all of this good stuff, but yet our family units are broken and not working properly.
Yeah.
That's not a good trade-off to me. That's not a good trade-off.
Yeah. Couple things to toss in there. One is Beverly Crusher. I think that's the one good example I can think of in 2 seasons, but she's off the show. So great job there.
Yeah,
So they had
yeah,
one good family dynamic. But
yeah.
then the other thing is, um, shoot, I lost it because I got stuck on Beverly telling Wesley to shut up. And I was like, well, except for that one moment. But in general, it's, that was the one good dynamic. Oh, that's the thing, is like, I agree that if that's what we're looking forward to, is all of these broken homes and all of these unhappy people, not to play amateur screenwriter, but I get that you've got to create conflict. My screenwriting professor used to always say, nobody wants to watch The Village of Happy People. If it's a village of
Mhm.
happy people, nothing happens. It's no conflict, right? But there is some very, very interesting and nuanced conflict to be had between two nice people. Like, it makes it a lot harder to tell somebody something that they don't want to hear if they're a nice person. If they're a jerk, then yeah, it's easy to be like, hey, you can't do this, you can't do that, that's an order. But if they're a nice person, now we're watching the actor's inner turmoil of like, I really don't want to tell her that, or I really don't want to tell him that because he's such a nice, and the person's being so nice and being like, oh, here, I made you a cake. And they're like, oh God, I have to tell him the bad news. You know what I mean? That
Mhm.
creates a lot of conflict too. And, I do hope we see more of that. And I think we will as the show matures. But yeah, it's a good point about a lot of broken, family dynamics so far in these first 2 seasons.
Yeah, a lot of broken family. And yeah, and there's a lot of backstory there, and this is the reality for a lot of people, including myself, who grew up in a single parent household with in a divorce type of situation. So it is a real thing that people grow up like this, but it also was something that you would hope down the line in the future when certain things like maybe drug addiction becomes dealt with, right? And maybe financial problems becomes obsolete because we're living in this future where money doesn't have the same meaning that it does as it does today. So if we remove these factors, then you would expect healthier relationships to develop, I assume. But what I do see a lot of is unhealthy kind of relationships. Um, you know, Starting from the top, Picard off the top. He doesn't really have a functionally good relationship with Crusher. There's this undertone of like romance there, but it's not functional though. It's not like this is how we're going to do it.
That was when he went
And then
to her when she came.
exactly, exactly. And then he hates kids, so like, oh, kids. So, all right, that's him. So that's the first one. And then we keep going down and we see one by one, we're going to eventually, I'm sure, learn about Worf and
Yeah.
his family dynamics, which I already know about because of Deep Space Nine. But
Just wait till you meet his son too. Boy, he's also not the model of actually, there's this one meme that was so funny, and it was like, I think it was like Chief O'Brien saying, "Hey, happy Father's Day" to Worf, and Worf was like, I have a son, or something. Like he just totally forgot it. Something like that. He's like, what?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right. I am a father. So yeah, this is one of the things that jumps out to me. And not only are the relationships in the family dynamic relationships kind of flawed in a lot of ways, but it's also the relationship dynamics. Like the way the dad was referring to Riker and Troy's relationship seemed awkward to me. It didn't feel loving. It didn't feel welcoming. It didn't feel like they even had a conversation that would allow them to kind of explore how they feel about it. It was just more like commentary, and I just didn't feel it that much. So there's a lot of dysfunction.
So
Aboard the ship.
here are the two things that are most memorable about this episode that people,
Yeah.
just people in the internet talk about the most. There's the Anbo-Jyutsu, and there's the fact that Pulaski was humping Riker's dad and she just never mentioned it. She's like, oh, I just never brought it up that, me and your dad were humping and in love and all this stuff. And I fell in love with a patient, kind of scandalous. Didn't know you knew I did that. So be careful, don't get injured. So that's pretty scandalous that Riker's like, wait, I've been working with you for how many months? And I didn't know that you were almost my mother-in-law, or wait, stepmother.
Yeah.
And she was like, she was not shy about it either. She's like, yeah, her eyes were twinkling. She was great in this episode, actually. She was like,
she was great. She said, I would in a cold minute. I was like, oh, damn, in a cold minute.
She was owning it. She wasn't like acting kind of shy about it or ashamed, because a lot of people might play it a little bit like a little ashamed. No, she was like, I'm a grown ass woman. And me and your dad got it on. That was a little bit of Chris Farley right there. Got it on. And she owned it. And I thought that was really cool. But those are the two big takeaways from this episode when people are talking about it, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. And I'm okay with that. I did think Pulaski did a good job in this episode. There was some moments where I felt, she was delivering the lines well and just giving good performance. She pulled the, I'm older than you, Riker kind of move. Like you might outrank me or whatever, but you're young, son. And before you were aware of what was going on in the world, me and your dad were doing things. So that's, she pulled that card on him, and she has the right to. But you would think somebody would mention that, right? It's like,
what about, let me ask you this as a father yourself, Cirroc.
Yeah.
would you ever cheat in a game or a sport to keep your child coming back for more to try to defeat you, as we found out Kyle Riker did? Because at first we're like, this dude's just cheating for his own ego. Then he explains it. He's like, I couldn't beat you by the time you were 12 years old, so I had to cheat to keep making you come back and get better and better and better, which I guess works and makes sense. But I couldn't help but feel like there's got to be a different way that doesn't feel so off-putting. But again, I'm not in that position, so I have no idea and I can't really judge. But you, as an exemplary father of a superstar athlete right now, what would you do?
Yeah, I don't like the idea of cheating to win. I just don't like that idea. I think it just teaches a bad precedent. Let's say he had have noticed that a long time ago, then he would have learned that cheating is the way, right? It's teaching something that you shouldn't be teaching. It looks to me like his father's made a lot of bad decisions along the way, and most of them seem to be centered around only what he thinks and himself, uh, as it relates to himself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think good parents and good parenting is actually being able to see how things relate to your child and try to find the way that best works for them and brings out the best in them. Riker's turned out to be a good guy, but then he also has some of the bad qualities that his dad has, especially when it comes to. I feel like there is a machismo when it
Oh
comes
yeah.
to women and how he deals with women, and that definitely seems to be transferred over to Riker. Not necessarily, I think, a great. Some of it is good, some like some of that kind of bravado, but I think some of it is also chauvinistic and
Mm-hmm.
kind of overly. It just kind of rubs me the wrong way.
You know who was missing in this episode? Guinan. Uh, when they were in 10 forward, and there were good times, there were bad times, there were complicated times. It felt like it would have been a great time to have Guinan there, kind of playing referee or kind of being an ear, because Troy, that's kind of her job usually, but she can't help but be a little connected because it's a Riker situation, because he's leaving. We haven't even talked about the promotion or the Worf thing, but I felt like in that moment, if a couple times it felt like there could have been, Guinan's character in there kind of mediating. Uh, but I guess it was okay without it. Um,
Yeah, and speaking of the Guinan thing, there are. It's crazy because when you write yourself into this kind of a corner, they wrote themselves where Troy is this counselor and has this ability, and then also Guinan has this
yeah.
counselor kind of ability, and also Wesley has this kind of
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. That's true. You're right. He played kind of like the counselor savior for. He's like, "What's wrong, Worfy? Oh, yeah, I don't know. There's
yeah,
something." He was like telling
this,
on Worf at first. He went to Geordi. He's like,
yeah,
"Worf was being mean," and Geordi's like, "Don't worry about it,
yeah.
kid." He's like, "No, you don't understand. He was being like really rude to me, and I didn't even do anything." And he was just like, "Get away from me, kid. Don't you think that's mean?" And Geordi was like, "Oh
Yeah,
God, too much drama, kid."
like you figure it out. I don't know. I don't have time for this. But yeah, to me that was Wesley having the same skill set now that Troy and Guinan have. It's just basically reading his emotions, kind of sensing something is wrong, and sensing something is wrong to the point where I have to take action and go through this whole investigative process. So that's what Troy does. That's what
A friend of mine's wife calls Troy the feelings lady.
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I
That
mean, if you
makes
say
sense.
the feelings lady to any Star Trek fan, they'll know exactly who you're talking about. Uh, but look, here's the thing. when the dad said initially, he says, or no, Riker said it at first. I could never beat my old man, or I don't remember if it was Kyle. One of them said it, right? That actually hit me the hardest of this whole thing, because my grandmother used to take me and my brother when we were kids out to play tennis. This little old Spanish lady, and she would always beat us. And she was in her 60s and 70s, and we're like, why can't we beat this old Spanish woman that's not even really running from side to side? They got mind control over, there's certain parents or adults that just have like this weird mind. I ended up beating her twice in my life. My brother, who was older than I was, that I could never beat her. So that was the one thing I was like, I never beat him, but I could beat her. And anyway, we could win tennis tournaments in like middle school and summer camps. We're winning all these things. Can't beat grandma. It's the weirdest thing. And I don't know what it is, but certain adults just have this thing.
It's true. Yeah, that's true. They have that ability, but that's because also from their perspective, they're looking at you like, I was doing this when you couldn't walk. So there's a mental confidence there from their perspective too. Like, you have a lot to learn in order to catch up to what I've already done. And even on my downswing, on my decline in my athletic ability, the things that I learned will keep me better than you until you get there. So that makes sense to me. And it's something that parents do. And I mean, beating your kid in a sport is the right thing to do, in my opinion.
I thought you were going to say feels good. I thought you were going to say beating your kid in sports just feels so good.
Like you have to challenge them. Like, what's the opposite to let them win?
Right.
And then if you let them win, then they feel there's nothing else to learn, because they're like, I mastered this thing. I beat the person who's done it the whole life. And I know everything already. And the idea is to teach somebody that they have more to learn, that there's more there's work to put in, there's practice to put in, there's more to learn. And so you have to beat them so that they know that.
But that's the juggling act, right? That's like, if you go hard on the kid, it could be discouraging. But if you go easy on the kid, you're not helping them to get better, right? That's kind of like that fine line that's, I don't know.
I like to talk my way through it. This is my own way of when I'm parenting or talking with a kid that I'm trying to teach something. If I'm playing them in chess, for example, I will say, this is what I'm doing. I will move my piece and let them know as I'm moving my piece what my strategy is, and how I'm setting them up for another move. So I'll tell them, I'm moving my bishop here so that I can move my queen here and get you in checkmate. Do you see how this offense is working? And you have to see those steps ahead in order to make moves. And it's the same thing. I'm going to be instructing while I'm playing with you. So I'm going to not try to block your shot like Shaq, but I will show you that the defense is going to slide here and they will be here. So you have to figure out a way to get your shot off in a different way. It's not about punking them or showing how your dominance over them. It's about instructing, in my opinion. It's about teaching.
But dominating them is pretty fun too, though. My dad taught me how to play chess he just started playing without his queen at first, and then when I could beat him without his queen, then he would just play without a rook, and then when I could beat him without a rook, he'd play without a knight, and then when I could beat him without the knight, then we just play.
Yeah, that's cool. But I like that.
Look, everybody, let's take a break here, because now I feel like going to a playground and taking on a bunch of 13-year-olds at basketball for some reason. I just want to I was picturing you, Cirroc, just like blocking people, like Shaq, just being like, here, take a shot. Oh, sorry. You should have, Anyway, because I want to talk about Worf and, Miss Parker. It's from the movie Friday, the 90s hit Friday by Ice Cube with Chris. And it was that guy, that preacher that kind of came up, and he was
Bernie Mac. It was Bernie Mac.
Right. And he went up to the two guys. He was like trying to get, some reefer or whatever. And they're like, no, no. And then he turns around and he sees Miss Parker and he just ditches them. So he's like, Miss Parker, right away.
Okay,
Beautiful.
there it is.
One of the most quotable movies ever. All right. We'll be right back on The Seventh Rule. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to that there Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, hello.
Here are the trivioids of the week. There weren't a ton. The Enterprise is en route to Starbase Montgomery. Something to talk about there. I thought that was a little weird, where I'm always used to Starbases having a number, and this one was just a name. Mm-hmm. Oh, it was named after Montgomery Scott.
Okay.
The captain of the starship Ares is retiring. Worf never knew his father. Dr. Pulaski did not bake Kyle Riker a cake. Dr. Pulaski was married thrice. Cool punk band, by the way, Thrice. Kyle Riker is crusty. Commander Flaherty speaks 40 languages. Wesley accessed the complete Klingon cultural database, and Wesley invites Chief O'Brien to a party. Dude, Chief O'Brien keeps getting bumped up. You notice that? Like, he just keeps getting more. Now, not only is he getting a bigger role, he was like Riker's confidant. He was like Riker's bro today. I forgot about that. I was so happy for him. The actor.
Which was great, because I think it was the first time I see him drinking a beer or something, right? And we know later on we'll see him like Quark's drinking a beer a lot, or whatever he's drinking.
In the transporter room, he's always got a beer like hidden under the console.
Yeah.
When people are leaving, he's just like, sweet refreshment. And then they walk in, he puts it down, lets out a little burp,
Yeah, exactly. But this is the first time we get to see him with a beer and in the bar drinking with Riker. I like that. I like the fact that he was a confidant. And he asked him, what is it, family or career? Because one of those two got to be bothering you. And it usually comes down to that, or, something, usually those two things. And I like the line he delivered when he was talking about Riker's dad and Pulaski when they gave each other a kiss. And he says, yeah, I know her too, but we don't do that. I like that line.
That was his best line so far in The Next Generation, especially obviously the way he delivered it. And before that, what I really loved as well was the look. Like, Kyle Riker's like, hey, how about a hug? And she goes, how about a kissy poo? And they're like, and then it's like cut to Riker and Chief O'Brien, and they both have this look like, what the did I just
Yes.
Yeah. He's like, I guess they know each other or whatever. And that's when O'Brien says his hilarious line and delivers it perfectly. Good stuff.
I thought it was good stuff. The other thing is, back to Wesley a little bit. I wanted to cover Wesley. He said something here that I thought was just really great. He says, I've been doing research about the Klingons, and he says Worf is feeling culturally and socially isolated. And I was just like, that is the true essence of what Star Trek is about, in my opinion. Is that when you recognize somebody is culturally and socially isolated, you do your best to alleviate that. And that's what we do at the conventions when we meet each other. That's what we do for each other when we meet up in these digital forums and these kinds of spaces, is we're trying to welcome everybody so that no one feels culturally or socially isolated.
Right. You don't want them to feel alone. You don't want them to feel like nobody knows them or nobody understands them, or they have nobody to turn to, or nobody that identifies similarly to them. And Star Trek's always been good about that. I get maybe not the original series. They were always kind of rough on Spock for being a Vulcan. They kind of were dicks and bigots to him. But Deep Space Nine was great about it. Look, Odo had a room full of whatever furniture he had so that he could change into, and Worf had plenty of prune juice on hand. Speaking of which, this was the first time we are introduced. It's great because we're getting the firsts, in these first couple seasons. first time we were introduced to pain sticks. Pain sticks, the thing where they're like zapping Worf.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to remember the line. Oh no, it's in the 7th season of Next Generation. Deanna Troi does say something to Worf saying, I'm sure you'd much rather just spend a night getting zapped by pain sticks or something like that, which was very funny. One of the best episodes ever. No spoilers though, but that's our first introduction to pain sticks. And they had those also in Worf's bachelor party on Deep Space Nine, if you'll recall.
Yeah. That to me looked like a Klingon Soul Train line. Yeah, for those of you remember, for those of you that don't know, in Soul Train back in the day, everybody had to do their dance down the runway, and that's where it felt like to me. It was a Klingon Soul Train. I was waiting for Don Cornelius to come out of the background, but um, yeah, I wish they could have done more on that. I felt like this episode was slow, and the pace wasn't good enough for me because they were just milking the father stuff with Riker too long. I'm avoiding talking to each other, and to me, it would have been better had they just boom jumped into a conflict, have some kind of argument, let that escalate, and find another way to keep them talking. But I hope this whole like, oh, let's talk about it later. I'm just here for the reports. Um, I'm not going to talk to you right now.
It was childish.
Yeah, 5 scenes and like come on, like you haven't seen your dad in all this time. It just doesn't make sense that you would play it that way. If you have a problem with him, you just say, "Hey, where the hell have you been all this time?" And now you just pop up. You wouldn't avoid that conversation. You would pop up. You would go right into it to the point where maybe Picard has to say, "Number one, now's not, this isn't the way to, or not here at this place and time," something to that effect. But I could think that adds to the drama. It adds to the conflict. This whole avoiding talking about stuff bothered me. And also, I thought that that also they did the same uh, playbook for the Klingon situation with Worf. Avoid him. Worf is in a bad mood, and for the 3/4 of the episode, we're just going to be grumpy and not talk. And I'm not going to tell you what's wrong, sir. Excuse me. No, leave me alone.
Worf is very pouty. Like he
Yeah,
is a pouty Klingon. He doesn't, more than anything else, I would say if I had to describe Worf in one word, it would be pouty. Even when he would fight with Jaji, he'd be like, well, I do not think that is appropriate. But he's always like, but this is the first time where we really see it. We're like, come on, Worf.
Yeah. With all due respect, be gone, sir.
Yeah, the sir afterwards.
Yeah. So I just felt like they dragged that part out too long. Let's get to the ceremony earlier. You have built a set for it. You have the Klingon dressed already for it. Advance that storyline and expand upon it more. Show us some more involvement with the guys that volunteered to be there. I would have liked to see them more engaged in the ceremony. Maybe they have to ask certain questions, or maybe Worf has to reveal a truth about each one of them that he feels inside of them, so that they're also involved in the ceremony a little bit. So he has to say something about Data that Data doesn't know that he feels. I dislike you because you are never whatever, and boom, zaps, and everybody gets involved in that process. Now Data walks out of it like, I didn't realize he felt like that about me, and Geordi may have something, and Wesley may realize that Worf really loves him and wants to protect him and look after him. Like there could be some revelations there that we get that interconnects the characters. I thought it was bad that they were just standing in the background, kind of watching as he was going through the ceremony, as opposed to having an active role to play in it.
Yeah, while you were saying that, what also might have been fun is, rather than, because look, as a B plot, it had basically like 5 scenes to work with, 5 1 or 2 minute scenes. And the last scene was the one with, the Klingons and all that. What if they did that by the third scene? What if Wesley figures it out, talks to Geordi, they plan the thing, and then it's less about planning it and figuring it out, and it's more about the Klingon situation in the holodeck. What if at first Worf doesn't want to do it, like he's embarrassed, or he's like, this isn't real Klingons or whatever, and he walks in, he sees this, what is this, and kind of storms out, and then the arc is him talking to Deanna Troi or Guinan and them saying, hey, this is, first of all, it's not a bad thing to have friends that are willing to do this for you and research and go out of their way, but also this is the best you're going to get on this ship in your situation, in your life. Why not go for it? And then his arc is realizing, hey, I actually have it pretty good with all these friends that care about me and love me and whatever. And then he goes through, or any kind of thing like that. But yeah, I agree that they could have done more with that, created some kind of arc or depth, whereas they focused more on the planning, which it was okay. It was cute. It was fun for me because I like to see O'Brien in his fledgling scenes finally starting to kind of grow a bit. But yeah, before we move on from that though, Playmates came out with a Klingon, with a Worf with pain stick toy that everybody loves to giggle about, because it has the long purple pain stick that everybody laughs about. So there's that one. It's a good find from our good buddy and associate producer, Dr. Anne-Marie Seagull. But you can just imagine what the people in the Facebook groups always giggle about that one. They just love those pain sticks. Anyway, rude.
Yeah, the pain sticks. Yeah, I have other things to say. I'm going to go first. I want to say a line that kind of sat really iffy with me. And Riker, I think, was talking to Troy. I think it was Riker and Troy. Yeah, the scene where she's crying. By the way, I love the performance she gave when she was crying, and then I thought that
she
was
finally had a chance to show some acting chops. Yeah, I liked it too.
I like that scene. But in that scene, there was something about sharing your feelings, right? And I think the line was, "Our feelings make us human." And I'm thinking, you're saying that to a Betazoid, right?
Yeah, so
Like,
they're throwing it in her face.
Yeah, like, our feelings make us human. Like that, I don't know if that works saying it to Betazoid.
Well, she is only half Betazoid, so we'll give her that. But
yeah,
it felt a little.
But to be human is not even the right verbiage to use in a future in which you are in a multi, species environment, right? So this is what makes us human. But that would be okay to say amongst humans, but now we're in a place that is,
it's multicultural, bro.
We got a little bit of everything here. Yeah. So I thought that was it was a little insensitive in language for, once again, a time period set that far in the future. But I did want to say the concern that they had for each other was something that I did enjoy. I liked when Data kind of went up to Worf and said, "We care about you." It's something very simple to say like that, but it means a lot when you can say that to somebody. And I thought when he said,
"The feeling is not mutual."
That's what yeah. Well, that's what essentially is what he said. But when he says, "You have lost the will to communicate with others," what they're doing is an intervention, right? This is essentially an intervention. And it's like, we see our friend, he's in a sad and dark place, and we want to intervene to change his outlook or his mindset, put him in a better frame of mind, because we see that there's problems here of depression and reclusiveness. And so you intervene as friends. And I think that that is a thing that shows bonding amongst the crew when you see Wesley and Geordi and Data trying to intervene and come up with ideas of ways they can intervene to cheer up their friend. I love that. I just thought they could have got to it sooner and showed us more about the Klingon cultural ceremonies. How does the ceremony work? Like, what is the, get into that earlier in more depth. And um, I would have liked that to kind of accelerate the pace of this because there was moments when I'm watching this episode and I'm thinking, come on, get on with it. I get it. He doesn't like his dad. Okay. How long are you going to play that? How long are you going to play that note? We get it. He doesn't like his dad. He's going to pout, pout, pout. And again, also with Worf, how long are we going to play that? But I wanted to ask you a question. And this is something I noticed in this episode that I hadn't before, and that was the uniforms. Are these uniforms that have this extra little riveting here? Is that a new thing that I just
Was
didn't
that in
notice before?
engineering?
No, all of them were wearing this kind of. So I drew my little picture of it, but so these uniforms have this extra flap right here that
Yeah.
looks like the Navy or some kind of the sailors
Yeah,
flap.
that was kind of like a first and second season thing. That kind of gets phased out bit by bit. That's how you can always tell. You can always tell things that are like first or second season, kind of based on Riker's beard, or based on Pulaski, or based on this thing. That extra
Yeah.
thing. But that does get phased out eventually. It's just older. Um,
Maybe the first time I noticed it, but it stood out to me this time. I was like, wait a minute, that's not normal. That looks like is that a dress uniform? What's going on here?
what's this
So it's
extra
just
stuff?
something. Yeah, what's this extra flappage here? But okay, so it's something that they eventually phase out. Okay.
Yeah. And there were a couple things that did make me laugh as well. One was Kyle Riker's outfit. No offense, but that did make me laugh. A lot of these were very charming things, felt very late 80s. Like when Troy is telling Worf, she goes, and a certain resourceful young ensign. Worf goes, Wesley Crusher. The way he said that was a beautiful delivery. And another funny moment was right after that, when they go to the holodeck and he says, "You're not coming in." And she goes, "No." She's like, that was so cute
Yeah.
because exactly what she's thinking. In her delivery, she's showing you so many words, but just saying the one, no, that's not for her. Also, Pulaski's face when Worf collapses from the pain sick, she just looks like horrified. And also Pulaski's line afterwards when Troy asks Pulaski, she says, "Is Worf all right?" Pulaski goes, "He's never been happier." I don't know why. He just got brutalized, and he is just like a pig in shit now. He's like, "Oh, that was great. I need the next couple of days off to recover," but that was good stuff. So there were definitely some moments for me that some were meant to be funny, others were not. The other one was during the Anbo-Jyutsu when they're facing off and they're going like this. They both at some point face the outside of the circle. I get that you can't see, but like if you're looking for the guy, why are you facing out? And they're both anyway.
Out of bounds.
That was just kind of a weird
Out
thing.
of
I'm like,
bounds.
you think do you think he's in that direction somewhere? You clearly are aware of where the circle is. But anyway, this is all to me. That's like hokey 80s stuff. Maybe I'm giving them, too much of a pass because I like the show. But also the lines that were funny, that were meant to be funny, were also great.
Yeah.
But we do have to jump to our home run of the day.
Yeah.
Who gets the home run of the day, Cirroc?
I was going to add one other line there. I did like Troy when she says, false humility. It was a great dig on the dad. When he says, "Yeah, I do have a reputation for excellence," and she said, "and false humility."
A little kick in the pants there.
It was a great little extra kick. Home run of the day. Of the day. I'm gonna give it to Pulaski. I thought Dr. Pulaski shined in this episode. She's starting to grow on me. I remember when she first came aboard how repulsed I was by who is this new woman pretending to be Dr. Crusher?
Yeah.
And it bothered me. And so I didn't give her a fair chance just as an actor. And she's growing on me. I'm seeing that she is fitting in at this point in my observation. And not only fitting in, but holding her own and giving us perspective of a mature woman who's confident in herself and uh, her sexuality, her career, and holds her own against anybody, including the captain, which we saw in the last episode when she was willing to kind of take away his authority. So she has been holding her own. Dr. Pulaski gets the home run for me in this episode.
Yeah, me too, for basically the same reasons. No need to repeat what you just said, but basically that's it in a nutshell for me. Good for her. She owned the role. The character owned the moment. The actress owned the role. She gets the home run of the day for me. And here's the rest of the team, everybody. She couldn't have gotten the home run without people like
Homer.
Exactly. Homer Frizzell, Dr. Anne-Marie Siegel, Eve England out in Wales, Yvette Blackman Tom, TJ Jackson Bay out in Missouri, Bill Victor Arukin.
Arukin.
Titus Moeller, Darlena Marie, Dr. Muhammad Noor, Tierney C. Diekman, Anna Post, Anil O. Palat, Joe Balsarati, Mike Gu, DQ, Justine Norton Kurtzen, Dr. Stephanie Baker, Carrie Schwent, Faith Howell, Edward Foltz, My Life from Tokyo, The Matt Boardman, Chris McGee, Justin Weir, Jake Barrett, Jane Jorgensen, Henry Unger, Allison Leach Hyde, Julie Manosfee, Marcia Classic Schreier, Greg K. Wickstrom, that's a K in sign language if I remember correctly, and of course, Dr. Susan V. Gruner and Jason Oken. Thanks very much for hanging out with us. We've got the free-for-all up next. It's going to be nuts. Everybody's getting their Anbo-Jyutsu staffs and pain sticks.
Yeah.
We'll be right back on the Seventh Rule. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Seventh Rule. This is the free-for-all, of course, with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello.
Look who is here. It's Malissa Longo, of course. We've also got Allison Leach Hyde with her Ferengi eyes. They're watching you. We've got the Dark Lord, Chris McGee, always watching, actually. Doctors Susan V. Gruner is here. We've got Jason Oken with the radical poster background. This is a good one. Mai is live in Tokyo with something interesting in the background as well.
French fries in front of me.
Cirroc's eating French fries. We've got the Matt Boardman wearing an awesome Decor Province Majors shirt. That's his favorite baseball team. What's yours? Carrie Schwent is here with some wings behind her. Greg K. Wickstrom is like Melissa and I with his cool Anbo-Jyutsu reference. And Eve England is out in Wales with a cool, looks like the Chat Pack shirt, if I remember correctly. Yep. All right, first things first. Oh, this is a scary one. You guys should have heard Cirroc earlier. Jake Sisko guesses the IMDb score.
Yeah, I'm going to say this was about a 7. I got a 7.
Does anybody else have any guesses on what IMDb and the people thereof put this as a score?
6. I'm guessing 6.
I think 7.9. I think people like this
7.6.
Did we watch the same episode?
I looked it up, so it
7.3, and that would
myself.
not be my score, but I think probably 7.3 would be something that would show up on IMDb.
All right, all bets are in. 6.2. 6.2. Cirroc was closest without going over.
Yeah.
Did we have any non-appearance mentions today? I did not catch any.
Well, I was giving it extra points too because of the Anbo-Jyutsu. So I actually 6.2 is probably my actual score that I would rate it. But I gave it more because I felt it had lore of the past and certain things were memorable in this episode. But
you gave it a.
It's pretty accurate.
I thought you.
I gave it. Well, I gave it the score where I think IMDb would have that.
Oh, who said it? Who guessed a 6? Somebody guessed a 6.
Me.
Oh, you were the closest
Yeah.
without
But
going.
it wasn't a 10.
Sue, you guys, you were the closest.
Yeah.
This was better than Master League.
Every episode after this is going to keep getting better. You just wait, especially the season finale.
Uh-oh.
The ultimate.
Doesn't Wesley's father count because he mentioned his father?
Did he?
Not
Well,
my
if he did, then
name,
definitely,
but-
absolutely.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Well, they also mentioned the Traveler and
Yeah.
Paul
Riker's mom.
Mannheim. Or Mannheim. Paul Mannheim.
Wait,
That's the previous.
that was
that was
Oh, wait,
the
sorry, that
previous.
was last
Yeah,
week. Sorry, my bad.
because I just
Yeah.
saw those in my notes too. Yeah.
I know, I watched the wrong episode, and then I was like, son of God. But
Got it. So
Dang it.
Jack Crusher may be the
that was
only
so
one then.
clever.
I think so.
All right. Malissa Longo, will you please get us
Mhm.
started on the right track and tell us about Mannheim?
Oh, I think I liked this episode more than Cirroc did and more than Sue did. I appreciated this episode because we finally are getting some character development and character stories. And it was based all on Enterprise and the people who live there and not necessarily an outside source. I like that we've got a parallel A and B story that focused on Riker and Worf, and I liked both of those stories and why they were being presented. I like the scene with Troy and Riker when they were saying goodbye to each other. I thought that was pretty moving. I like that Pulaski and Riker's dad have a history. I like that worked in, and that was good because it brought Troy and Pulaski together in a way that we've never seen them before. It explores their relationship a bit. But my favorite scene, I think, is the Anbo-Jyutsu scene because I got angry at Riker when he said, "You should have been the one to die." I mean,
Rude.
talk about harsh and unfair. But, however, he is coming from the 15-year-old Riker who felt abandoned, essentially. And then coming from his father's point of view, he lost a woman he loved, that he built a life with. And that isn't easy to come back from. And it's probably especially harder when you have kids and you can't separate the pain that you're feeling, the grief that you're experiencing from, and put it into a place where you can move forward and love. And he just didn't have the tools for that. So I like that kind of exploration. And I do like that they kind of came to a common ground towards the end. So I like this episode overall. If I were rating it, I would give it probably a 7 because, there were things to work on, but, the overall story was better.
Mm-hmm. Good stuff. Thank you very much, Malissa Longo. Allison Leach Hyde is here. She's actually a bronze medalist in Anbo-Jyutsu. What did you think of this one?
I like this episode. I know I like most of them on average, but I do like this one because we do get a lot more character development. And I love that Wesley is so attached to Worf. I think it is a great relationship. And, when Worf yells at Wesley and Wesley doesn't take it personally, I'm like, that's really cool as an internal person thing. You just had an adult Klingon yell at you and you're 17? Go you. That was really good. But I love the just the whole thing of Wesley, Geordi, and Data like having this pet project that is Worf the entire episode, making him wanting to know what's going on and making him feel better. There was some, great humor with them that way. So those are why I really like this episode. I like that we finally get to see Troy's office. Like, she has an actual place on the ship to work. Like, she's got a job. She's just not here as set decoration. She's working. So I really like that we got to see her office, and it's cool. So those are my favorite things. I like the Anbo-Jyutsu scene. I do think they rushed the emotional climax a lot. Like, there was still stuff that Riker could have actually spoken. Like, it was a lot of just Kyle saying, well, this is how I felt and how I felt. I'm like, yeah, but he's your son. He was there feeling stuff too. So I think that could have been done better. That's probably one of the reasons that this director didn't really ever come back, because he wanted to have more emotion in this episode. Berman was like, yeah, let's have some more. And Gene was like, nope. They've all had it figured out already. It's like, no, they don't. He was a child. So that's what I don't like about the episode. But overall, I enjoy it because it's funny. And yeah, so that's what I like about it.
Interesting take. Everybody in the comments below, let us know your thoughts on whether this director was like, forget it, I'm out of here because of this episode. The Dark Lord, Chris McGee, is here as well. After this episode, he's like, screw you guys too, but we've got him now. What do you think of this episode?
Yeah, I wasn't entirely sure I wanted to be here. I didn't have that many notes from my rewatch last night, to be perfectly honest. I think I guess the 6.2 is about right for the for this. There's just not a whole lot to it except some good character development, as Melissa and Allison mentioned. And that, at least, it could have been better with more emotion had Gene approved it. But I like what we got anyway out of it. I did, as Melissa said, I enjoyed the American Gladiators. I mean, Anbo-Jyutsu scene. And now I'm going to have to go back and rewatch that Lower Decks episode where Magato Gomato, I believe, the one where Mariner just kicks butt in Anbo-Jyutsu. A couple of interesting little tidbits here. You probably have already mentioned them in the previous segments, but this is Riker's second offer that we know of anyway for the captaincy offering. Out of 4, maybe? I don't know. I'm not sure about that number. We'll see as time goes on. And probably also mention this, but the Klingons that were in the that Ascension party, shall we say, one of them happened to be well, they named him Katesh later because he's actually played by John Tesh of Entertainment Tonight, which no one would have seen or noticed. I don't even know which one he was in there.
He was the third one from the back on the left.
Yeah. Okay. I'll check it next time I watch. There were actually quite a few memorable quotes in this episode. I guess the one that I remember the most is, you choose your enemies, you choose your friends, but family, that's in the stars. Back to you, Ryan.
Thanks very much. Cool shirt, by the way. That's an emissary shirt, and you can get that shirt as well as this cool chat pack shirt at Walking Art made by Melissa. You can find that on the introvertedrepublic.com. Guess who makes it? All right, Dr. Susan V. Gruner is here. What's up? What do you think of this episode?
Oh, man.
Oh, no.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of something positive. I don't want to be negative all the time. No, I didn't like it. I thought it was so 80s. I don't know what they were thinking here. So I'm going to change the subject just slightly. I happen to be watching Outlander, where Ian goes through the gauntlet. And I thought about that when they film this. I'm wondering if that's where they got the idea, where Star Trek got the idea, whoever wrote the stuff, for the Klingons to go through these kind of rituals. It's a common thing, and the Mohawks did it. The English Navy did it. And sometimes it was punishment. Sometimes it was used to get into a tribe or something like that, but it's a real thing. And I thought it's weird that on the holodeck that they would have really painful pain sticks. And if it's an anniversary, why is he celebrating an anniversary by doing the same thing again? Didn't really make sense to me. But I did like the character development. I really like Pulaski. I love Gates as Dr. Crusher, but I also love the Pulaski character, and I'm glad that she had some love. Again, character development. And I'll save the rest for things left unsaid.
Good stuff. Thank you very much, Dr. Susan V. Gruner. What's up, Jason Oken? What did you think of this one? Cool Quark shirt, by the way.
Thank you. I would say I'm a little conflicted on this one, and frankly, I wasn't necessarily looking forward to rewatching it because my memories of it weren't that terrific. And what I really noticed is it happens to be it's less than the sum of its parts, which is kind of amazing. If you look at the little details, you should have a wonderful episode, and something just doesn't seem to work. It's probably, as far as I recall, I think this is the first Next Gen episode that doesn't really have any real sort of science fiction or any other kind of concept behind it. It's just purely characters. And I think, it's pretty rare, and it should be something we should enjoy. I mean, it certainly has an A story and a B story, and, at some level, it's nice to see. It would have been nicer had it connected a little bit more. But frankly, it looks better on the page than it does on stage. And I'm not sure what really it has to do with, because I think, certainly the direction was okay. It was serviceable. It wasn't, anything outstanding, but it wasn't horrible either. It's a second show in a row that's really kind of a bottle show, if you will. I mean, it really all happens on the Enterprise pretty much, with few exceptions here and there. So they did save some money here. And one little sort of tidbit is when they have the transporter room scene when Kyle Riker beams aboard. There's this transporter chief in the script. He's named Herbert, of all things. And if you notice, we never see his face and never see him speak. So I'm sure it was an extra with the Loop group. So they saved some money on little things like that. Sort of kind of irks you. And Sue, I think you're absolutely right. It has sort of this 80s feel about it. Maybe something, maybe because of Mitchell Ryan, he has sort of this kind of 80s performance in him. And his performance actually veers off a little bit, even from the direction that's in the script. In the Troy scene, where when Troy says that he has false humility, in the script he's supposed to kind of smile and kind of brush it off, and he kind of plays it. I'm basically pissed off. So there's something going on here, and frankly, it's one of those. Music sometimes certainly helps to accentuate and make the episode better. I did not like the music in this one, especially the cues they used on the ship. There's some score missing in certain parts, but most of it is just, it was more typical of the 80s television than of Star Trek. I mean, that's what it looked like to me. And that made the mood sort of, I wouldn't say ruined it for me, but it certainly didn't make it great. And I wasn't particularly thrilled with the costuming. I think what they had Mitchell Ryan wear was awful. And we see this sort of costume again and again and again. And even though they tried to come up with these creative Anbo-Jyutsu outfits, I think the helmets were awful. And when Frakes pulled his visor up, that chin strap with his beard looked not so good. And I think if that's the last thing you see in the episode, it just leaves that kind of an impression. And, Allison and, said it. I mean, the ending is rushed. And in reality, that's not what happens with people. And I mean, it was scripted that way, and it's just whether it was neutered by Roddenberry, and it might have been by the time it got to that portion of this part of the script. But it just, again, it's less than the sum of its parts. It should be better. I want it to be better. I mean, it's not awful by any means, but it should have been better than it really was.
All right, great stuff. Thank you very much, Jason Oken. Lots of great knowledge there. We've got Mai live in Tokyo. What's up, Mai?
Hey,
This one I looked first. Obviously living in Japan, the Japanese references stuck out to me. So I looked at the Memory Alpha. I clicked on what they were trying to say about Anbo-Jyutsu, and I was like, that's not even Japanese. What's up with that? But they translated it well, so that was cool. Meaning the martial art of staff combat in the darkness. I think it comes from Anbo-Jyutsu, which is the half staff fighting art. I think that's probably where they got the name inspiration. But one thing they didn't translate at all, which I thought was weird, was that the term Hachidan Kiritsu, which means eighth level discipline in Japanese. It was kind of cool that they used that. One translation they were totally wide of the mark on, where they said "Yoroshiku onegai shimasu" when they would come into the ring. They described it as a greeting, which means "please treat me gently." That's nonsense. That's not even remotely what it means. It's a phrase used later on in conversations, typically towards the end, an ending salutation, something like, "I look forward to your gracious contribution," or "please accept my offering, no matter how meager it may be," sort of thing. So some of the Japanese was a little bit off. The reason I've got this illustration is because that's from Gorin no Sho, which is referenced through the characters of fire and earth and water on the uniforms of both Rikers, the names of the chapters in Gorin no Sho, which is in English the Book of Five Rings, I think it's called. So that was kind of cool. The other thing I'd say about this episode was that Riker's decision to stay on the Enterprise. I totally get that. I can relate to that. I mean, when I was studying for my MBA, most of my classmates were keen on going on to a higher position in finance. But I wanted to improve my skills and then continue on at my firm, which is a real estate developer in Tokyo. And the thought of when Picard says to me, having it be your ship, it's right for some people, but maybe not so much for others. I foresaw the timeline of being the young soldier in sales and then proceeding to the guiding hand as a middle management person. And finally, as you get to the top, you're mentoring other people, and it's a whole different thing. So I think Riker sees this also, to be honest. And I think he likes the feeling of family on the Enterprise, and he doesn't need to be a captain to live his best life. And I liked his decision, and it closely resembles one that I made myself many years ago. So I thought that was very cool. And finally, I'll just say about this, and I'll leave it there.
What was that Japanese line? I look forward to your generous what?
Yoroshiku onegai shimasu. It's what they said when his father had a better pronunciation than Riker. When they bow to each other just as they're about to start the match, he says "Yoroshiku onegai shimasu," which is typically something said in as an ending salutation or partway through a meeting. It doesn't mean "please treat me gently." That was completely off on the translation.
Okay,
but it's a very common phrase. You use it a lot in Japanese, a lot.
Okay, thanks very much, my live in Tokyo. What's up, the Matt Boardman? What'd you think of this one?
Well, I like this episode, contrary to many other opinions. I really like this one. I like it because there is a lot of character stuff, and there's a lot of good humor in it. I love, Worf when he tells Data to buzz off, with all due respect, sir, pick on, that cracks me up every time because that is so Worf. I love that Wesley's like trying to coerce Geordi and Data into like finding this stuff out, and Geordi's like, no, what are you going to do? So Wesley can't pass the buck on that. I love O'Brien describing what happened to whatever that creature was when it got hit with a pain stick. Exactly. I'm like, and then Pulaski's like, okay, I think we're good. We don't need to talk about that anymore. But and then coming from someone who had a very uneven relationship with his father growing up, I can understand Will's attitude towards his father. And I think that was I appreciated being able to see that background, and not that my dad and I have ever jumped into a ring to, do a little bit of Anbo-Jyutsu, but I do understand, I can appreciate that coming back later as an adult and kind of finding some of that common ground. So I appreciate that aspect of this episode. And finally, Worf walking down with the pain sticks. I mean, I can't even tell you how many times I have shouted those Klingon phrases as I've stepped on something, or I'm like, I'm not feeling well and I'm like trying to struggle out of bed. And I will say those same things, it's just absolute gibberish. Or I will even shout out, the weight of my feet are heavy, but I must make it to the bathroom, or something like that, So, but overall, I just love this episode. It's a favorite of mine of season 2. And I just think there's a lot of really good, fun character stuff that I don't know if we necessarily see it later on. There are a few callbacks, but I like that they are at least making the attempt to, this is kind of a precursor to what we start seeing once we get into the Michael Piller era of the writing room.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, the Matt Boardman, who is 1/8 Klingon, actually. What's up, Carrie Schwent? What did you think of this one?
I enjoy this one. I love the name of it. I love all of those old like Greek and Egyptian and all those fun sort of myths. So I decided to have some fun with some pretty wings for the background, even though they didn't even bring it up in the episode. But and I enjoyed the whole episode, but I very much enjoyed the Worf and Wesley and that half of it much better. I don't tend to do very well when in like familial arguments or hearing other people fight. I very much like avoiding that sort of stuff. I've been in the middle of far too many of those, so that part of it I didn't enjoy as much. Although I did enjoy getting a little bit more of Pulaski's background. And call me a romantic, but I think their little smooch in 10 Forward should have been just a tiny bit longer. That was just more of a peck on the lips from old friends, not the peck on the lips of an old lover. You just a tiny bit, just a tiny bit more. But I very much relate to Wesley with the whole Worf thing, because you see a friend that's struggling somehow, and all you want to do is just help them figure it out. I'm a rampant distributor of Care Bears. If people I know are going through something, I can't help myself. I very much relate to that. Miles is very very much adorable in this. I've known very very many stubborn men in my life, so I very much enjoyed the girl bonding in the observation lounge between the two ladies. Like, yeah, men are just stubborn sometimes. Why do we put up with them? Well, because occasionally they're charming and pretty to look at. I can agree with that. And so for my limerick this time around, I decided that to come at it from what if Kyle Riker had gone through Worf's the ascension ceremony, what kind of things would he say instead of what he said during the Anbo-Jyutsu match? I'm a father jealous of my son. I pushed him away and forced him to run. I sailed a river of tears, too proud to show you my fears. When we sparred, I had to cheat, so I won.
Excellent stuff. Thank you very much, Carrie Schwent. Greg K. Wickstrom is here. He's got his Anbo-Jyutsu ready as well. What do you think of this episode?
This one was, I want to say positive, because I always try to look at the positives in these episodes, I think it's one that does better on the first watch than like rewatches, because you kind of already know where the father-son dynamic is going if you've just seen it or recently seen it. The pacing is a little slow at first, and then it picks up. The A story, I think, balances out with the B story, kind of like the drama and the comedy. But yeah, there were some great moments in it, and I think it's a good episode for those reasons. Like, Data shows a lot of like human emotions. I don't know if anybody noticed that. but like more than, I won't spoil anything, but there was like Data being concerned about Worf, in the bar scene, I think with Geordi. He talks about, he goes over to Worf saying like, hey, we care about you. We want to know that you're doing all right. And let's see, the Anbo-Jyutsu, the helmets, they could have lost the helmets and it would have been great. Let's just put a blindfold on. I think that was kind of like right there. It's not the best, but overall they had some great moments, and I think that's what makes this episode stand out. It's more character driven, and a lot of people already said these things, so I'll just leave it there. I think it's a good episode. It could be better. There's some,
Thanks very much, Greg K. Wickstrom. Eve England has been dying to jump in here and say this is the best episode she has seen so far out of what, like 40 so far? What do you think of this one?
Yeah, I'm actually really surprised that people didn't like it. And it's interesting what you just said, Greg, about, maybe when you watch it, sort of has an impact on how you feel about it, because these sort of character development points and just those little interactions and that sort of humor and just seeing their personalities coming through, it's kind of what I have felt it has been missing. And I know we've had a couple of odd episodes where we feel that, that's kind of coming through. I thought this was the first time where I really felt, that this crew really does gel properly. They seem to have these different relationships and these concerns for each other. And to me, Pulaski is just getting better and better, and she is always there, right in the thick of it with all of them, supporting everyone. So I just thought that was brilliant, and just hearing more about her was just fantastic. So yeah, I wasn't a big fan of the A plot with Riker and his dad. Like I said, I think there was, what everyone said, it was a bit rushed. It didn't quite have the depth that you would have liked to have seen. It could have had its whole episode, I think. But the B plot was certainly a lot of fun. I just would like to see a bit more of that, because I really did feel that I'm starting to really like the characters there. Going back to Picard, obviously my favorite subject, I did really enjoy the way that he was coaching and speaking to Riker about the options, and he just seemed to be much more human and on a sort of one-to-one level than we've seen him before. So I saw that sort of glimpse of maybe why people do like him so much, because I just feel like he's just been so impersonal up until this point. So that was a bit of a nice glimmer of things to come, hopefully, from Picard. And again, just seeing so much. Brian was amazing. He was just everywhere, and he was, and I loved him in the bar, and it was just so much character there, and I'm just looking forward to seeing more O'Brien as well. But yeah, apart from that, I just thought it's just a really nice episode, and again, it's just given me a bit more confidence that we're going to get some more of that character development that I've been looking for.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Eve England out in Wales. This is her first watch, everybody. You think she loves Pulaski now, just wait till the 4th season. Cirroc Lofton, what did you think of this episode on your final thoughts?
Yeah, I just thought it was a little bit slow, and it took a while for them to get to going into where they needed to get to. There's a lot of, Riker's trying to, I don't want to have this conversation right now, and they kept doing that too long to me. I thought they could have just got the conversation over with and then deal with more problems. And the thing I would have liked to see more of is a conversation between Riker and Troy. I thought that was the best scene in this episode. I thought Troy, in that moment, started to tear up and show that she actually had feelings for Riker. And I would have liked to see that conversation expanded on. Like, you're about to leave the ship and leave her behind. You have feelings for her. I would have liked to see that conversation, like, what do you think I should do, babe? This opportunity has been presented and I'm thinking about doing this. And, some kind of conversation there would have been, if you truly love this person and you want to build a life with them, then you're going to include them on your future plans. And that's going to make a decision on your own and disappear and not have a really in-depth conversation. So I would have liked to see more of that for their relationship development, because it was alluded to with the father, who clearly knew about their relationship, even though he wasn't in contact with him for the last 12 years, yet he somehow knew that Riker and Troy were connected. And I thought, that's weird. If a dad's not keeping in touch, how do you know that? How do you know that there's something there between Riker and Troy? So there could have been a lot more conversations that I felt could have happened that would have given me more of what I needed. The other thing that confuses me is this title, the Icarus Factor. And when I think of Icarus, I think of those, wings that melt. And I know it's a father and son story, but Icarus, dies and crashes into the water. And is Riker Icarus in this comparison? Because he would be the son. And how does that translate? Because I don't see Icarus's father, which forgive me for butchering the name, but Daedalus. I don't see Riker's father exemplifying the same traits as Daedalus, Icarus's father, and I don't see the story there, the comparison in the story. I do know that they talked about flying too high or flying too low, and perhaps that was like something about Riker having the opportunity to fly too high and get his own captainship, or fly too low. I couldn't really find the way to make that parallel. So that was a little confusing for me. There were good moments. Actually, when I first saw Kyle, is that his name, Kyle, the dad? I thought he was Gene Roddenberry. Like the first instant that I saw him on the, the transporter, I was like, is that Gene Roddenberry? Is he in this episode? And then they, got the close up or whatnot. And I thought, oh, that's not Gene. But there was the hairstyle almost was similar to Gene's, almost the outfit. I felt like it's like the outfit seemed like a Gene outfit. So, those are my final takes. I have more stuff. I'll look for things.
All right. I did not see the Roddenberry thing coming. That just made me want to start Googling stuff. That's it for us, everybody. If you are on Patreon with us, then you will enjoy Things Left Unsaid right after this. If not, everybody at home, we appreciate you hanging out regardless, especially with Malissa Longo, Allison Leach Hyde, Chris McGee, Susan V. Gruner, Jason Oken, My Live in Tokyo, the Matt Boardman, Carrie Schwent, Gregory K. Wickstrom, Eve England, for myself, Cirroc Lofton, Malissa Longo, and our great bird in the sky, Mr. Aaron Eisenberg. We will see you next time. And until then, always remember the seventh rule.